I'm a firm believer of basics. You have to do the basic stuff correctly.
What would you identify as the basics?
Again, that depends on your goals, what your goals are. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, man. So this has been pretty fun. You probably haven't seen anything yet because you've been busy making tons of money.
Yeah.
So what's new at Amanzi these days?
Oh, we're just getting back after COVID. So, are you there?
Yeah, I hear you. We got you. You're live. Yeah. So tell me about COVID for you guys. You're in Texas, so you actually had a governor that was a little bit more sympathetic than where we're at up here in Michigan.
But I was actually talking to someone yesterday, and although it was very relaxed, we did not really see a big change till about June of this year. But we did had opportunity to work and not have the government over us telling us, that we cannot work. So people who wanted to have events could do the events.
Excellent. So I'm going to focus today. The reason why I wanted to talk to you is because obviously you've been extremely successful down there in Texas with multiple locations and whatnot. But I'd like to talk to you about when you first got started, because my goal here is to give, some insight to people and encouragement, I guess, for people that are just getting started in the business. I mean, every year there's anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 new party rental companies in the country, and just as many go out of business because getting through that first year is pretty difficult. Tell me a little bit about, well, first, how did you decide to get into the party rental business? Because I think you come from a construction background, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I am actually a civil engineer, and that is how I got to the US. I had a H-1B1 visa, and I worked for consultants for some time designing, actually in Houston. It was in Houston, and I designed some big channels and things around the Bush Continental Airport. So that's what I did, and after that, I got involved in construction. So I did construction till actually 2012. But in 2008, when the economy tanked with the financial breaking down, I was looking for something else to do because I was at that time, Heather and I just got married. We were like, a year and a half, 2 years together, and we have 8 children together. I have 4, and she's got 4, and I had custody of my kids. So we had 8 children in our home that was 3,400 square feet. So the kids would double up in the room and everything, and I had to find something else to do because the money that I made out of the construction was just not enough after during that recession. And I can't really remember why I decided on party rentals, but the main reason why I did that is I did from Monday to Friday my construction company. And then on the weekends, I started to do the rentals. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why I picked the rental business, because I could then do the rentals on the weekend and work Monday to Friday on the construction business. And I've done that till 2012 when I looked at the financials and I decided I'm going to focus just on one thing. I'm a big believer on focusing on one thing and not having your attention split up. So I woke Heather up one night and I told her, we're going to start a rental company. And actually yesterday I was talking to a guy, and he said, what did you know about the industry? And I said, dude, I didn't know nothing. Zero. And and I've told to a few guys because they don't believe me, but my first units that I bought was off of Amazon.
Yeah.
So I went to Amazon and I bought those thin slides for $300 and $500. I didn't have money at the time, obviously, so that's what I bought. And then every 10th time I had to replace it because it would not last. So that is, and then in I think March of 2009, that's when I bought my first commercial moonwalk from Happy Jump. So that's how I started.
So it was Heather, when you woke her up in the middle of the night and told her about starting a party rental company, did she say what, or how was she open to the concept?
No, she was thinking I was drunk that time of the morning. No, I mean, at the time, Heather and I was married for like about 2 years. Yeah, it was, around 2 years, and maybe a little bit less than that. And she didn't know me, right? Because her previous husband he's also an engineer, but he was not somebody who took chances. So he was always working for a salary, and that's what she was used to, making a check every 2 weeks. And when we got together, there is no something like a check every 2 weeks, right? And so it was kind of scary for her that I'm going to start this new thing. And there was obviously no money at the time. And so it was scary to her, yeah.
Yeah. So at that period of time, you bought this stuff off of Amazon. I can just imagine what it was. But were you like all of a sudden had the Amazon truck show up at the front of the house and you loaded all this stuff in the garage, or did you have a more solid plan together at the time?
No, there was no plan. I'm not. Now I obviously plan way ahead, and my financials and stuff is about 5 years, 3 to 5 years ahead. But at the time, you just move forward because you have bills to pay, right?
Right.
And I had a lot of responsibility at the time. Not that I have less now, but at that time, you had 8 children in the house that needed to be fed. I can't tell them, no, we don't have money for food. We have to live in this house and everything. So I was very motivated by that at the time. And so that's what I had to do.
At some point, I know a little bit about this story because you and I have been friends for many years now. Tell me about, at some point you decided to really kind of homogenize the Amanzi brand. And you put at the period of time you did it, you put a ton of money into the Amanzi website and things of that nature. I think you are way ahead of your time in terms of branding and marketing and merchandising yourself. Tell me about your thoughts then. Did you do that because that was just something that you knew about, or did you say, other companies that are really special do this, so I should do it too? What was your thinking about that when you were kind of putting the Amanzi brand together?
Well, when I got involved with the rental industry in 2009, beginning of 2009, late 2008, it was still a very young industry. The people that has done it was more people that had done it for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And there was a whole bunch of new people coming in where I was one of them. And this is just my own, recollection of the time. And, ERS and Inflatable Office, those people started a little bit before me, but they were the only, and then was the software, and I can't remember the name, that's been there for long. The guy was sick and things like that, and he was on his way out. And that is what we had. And the industry was not really, was really new. So the people who got into it did not understand marketing, did not understand websites, didn't understand email and the importance of all those things at the time. I think today it's a lot different. People has, learned. There's more people in our industry that provide those services, but at the time it wasn't. So, and at the time, and Rob needs to forgive me, but ERS, SEO wise, did not do very well. And I realized that at the time, and I knew I need to do more outside of what they provide. And what I usually at the time did in December, January, February, when I was busy with my construction, but at time I taught myself SEO and how it works and how you should do it. And also at the time I didn't have money, right? So I instead of spending money on Google AdWords, I taught myself SEO and how it works. And so I listened to Matt Katz, the guy from Google, and so on. So I watched a bunch of videos and things like that. And I employed a designer here in Austin. That was back in 2012, end of 2011, beginning of 2012. And we did, at the time, we were close to $1 million at the time of revenue through the year. And I employed that guy, and I employed a guy that helped me with the SEO for questions that I could ask. And between the three of us, we built the website. And my website is due for overdue, but the website Amanzi that you see now, I did that in 2012. And it still do well. I know there's some issues on it because it's 10 years later, but I'm happy where I'm at with it. How I started with it and the reasons why I did.
Right. No, I think it was very forward thinking. And speaking back about those days, early on when I was doing websites because, well, first of all, I wasn't in the party rental business. I was in the aviation business. So when back in those early days, and I'm talking about the early 90s to probably the late 90s, the website business was just starting at its infancy. And we were trying to create at that time and I'm talking about corporate aviation, these businesses that buy, the big airplanes and whatnot. And we were trying to come up with a solution because it hadn't been invented yet. E-commerce type websites hadn't been invented yet. And we were trying to figure that out. And it was quite difficult. But I can remember, and I want to say it was right around that time that you're talking about when you were trying to figure out SEO and stuff. I was part of a group in Chicago, internet retailer. And I don't know if you've ever heard of them or whatnot, but it's far bigger than IAAPA. And just to give you an idea, I think the tickets to get in for all the sessions was like $2,500 just to go to the convention. And of course, I was being funded at that time by rich guys. And so they sent me to Internet Retailer when they were first starting to talk about these e-commerce style websites. And there was this new group there. And I can't remember the exact year it was, but it was in the early 2000s sometime. I went to Chicago for the Internet Retailer show, and they had these new guys there called Google. And everybody was, what the hell is a Google, and just, but man, talk about guys that had their stuff wired tight. And the thing that got me, and it totally changed my way of building websites at that time, because, nobody knew what to do. I didn't have any classic graphic design training at that time. I subsequently did, but at that time I didn't. I was more of just a techie. I just always been into computers and stuff. And when websites came around, that was the first thing I wanted to learn how to do. But anyway, these guys came to that show, and it was the first time I had ever seen anything like this. And they had done a study before Google came live. It was at that time where Google was just becoming known. And they talked about their data there. And I wish they would, share even more data, because now they get to be more protective of their own research and data. But they were talking about, it was the first time I saw a heat map, where they showed how people click and things like that. But they went a step further and they were actually tracking eye movement on a page and how people would read a page, how their eye movement would go down the page. And it totally changed the way that I started designing websites. And I applied that later on to the party rental business, but that was really informative. In terms of the way that people just followed that. And there wasn't a whole lot of talk in those days about SEO. It was just, if you got a website, chances are it would show up in some search engine. So yeah, it's kind of lucky. Because at that point now you've got this new Amanzi website. There's probably, I can't think of anybody else in the country that was doing it like you were doing it at that time. I mean, subsequently, obviously, people copy things all the time now in the industry. So they see something cool pop up and whatnot. How has your opinion of the internet business changed or developed since those days? I mean, what are you focused on now in terms of your internet presentation?
Well, one of my big things for this new year is to redo my website, the Amanzi website. I have a couple other ones that I will still leave the way that it is. But that's one of my main focuses for the next year because my website is so old. It's been doing really well. I have, all the data to show that. So I'm kind of,
well, a 65 Corvette is pretty old too, but people still love it.
Yes, exactly. So we still, it's still doing really well. I mean, I have the data, but it is due for overall. It's 10 years old. It's done in PHP and things like that. But and some people will probably argue that, but I'm fine with it. It's doing good as it is. I'm not so focused on getting backyard people to go online and book it. I have some other peripheral websites that do that. So my Amanzi website is really not focused to that, although, and it's kind of difficult to get to the place where people need to book, although people still book the online. It's not as high as my other websites, but my focus with Amanzi is not to get the backyard people to buy. That's not my target market. So, but my number one focus next year is to build a new website for Amanzi.
Yeah, and just so people understand that watch this video, you're ERS users, but your Amanzi website is a standalone website that you integrate ERS into. And that was the unique thing about what that was when you first started up. Let me ask you this, and let's get our mentors' hats on for a second. And I know you personally too are still involved in mentorship programs for yourself personally.
Correct.
What do you think when you think about somebody that's in their first year of starting up a business, maybe they're in their first or second year, what kind of things would you recommend people focus on? Because I see a lot of people going IAAPA and buying everything that they can buy. But what would you think would be the golden nugget for a newbie to focus on to grow their business in a solid manner?
Well, I have a lot to say about that, but the number one thing that I believe somebody needs to do is to look at their goals. What do they want to achieve with what they're going to do? Unfortunately, in this industry, what I notice is people tend to run after every new idea or any somebody says this and then that's the holy grail. They run after that. And I am totally don't agree with that. I believe you need to start with a foundation. You need to see what is my goals. Some of us, and when I did my roadmap in Las Vegas, this is where I started, because you need to figure out what do you want to do and why you want to do this. To just rush after a top line is the stupidest idea that you can have, because that does not equate to success. You need to figure it out for yourself. A lot of us, we start the business, and why do we start the business? What do we want to do with this business? And most people, they do a business to pay for their bills and have a certain lifestyle. They call it a lifestyle business. Mm-hmm. And most people are in that. And I think that is 100% fine. But people hear all these things. Well, these people, they do this and that, and this company does that. Now I need to do that. We need to get into mechanical rights. Now I buy this and that and that. And that's not the right thing for you. And I think this is where a lot of the people fail in our industry, is that they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know what is right for them. And then they run after all these other people, almost like sheep. And I think that is the biggest problem that I see with people. So I always start, what do you want to do? You don't have to do $500,000. You don't have to do $1 million. If I mentor somebody, the first thing I want to know, why are you doing it? Where do you want to go? Because that is the important part. It's not about the top line. And on the top line, I can talk a lot about that too. A lot of people chase the top line, but the bottom line suck. They're not making profit. I know of companies that does $20, $30 million that barely make 2%, right? So you do all that risk and you make 2%. I'd rather do $500,000 and make the same amount of money, but I make 30%, right? So I think that is where I would start. And that's where I do start when I work with people.
And so to grow a company like you've done, and you know, like I said before, I think you've got, how many cities are you in now? 5 or 6 different cities in Texas?
We're in 4 in Texas. 4. But we deliver all over Texas.
Yeah. So you've got a pretty robust employee list. What's the culture like? And the biggest thing we always see people talking about is the problem with employees, but I'm starting to feel more that the problem isn't with the employees, it's with the employers. How do you feel about your culture with your employees?
Yeah, I mean, I, for one, think it's very difficult to build a culture with 1 or 2 or 3 people working for you. There is a culture, obviously, but the problem in our industry is when it gets to October, November, December, January, February, you can't keep those people, especially if you do 100, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even 7, $800,000. It's very difficult to keep your people. And then there's no continuity in your culture. And that is really the biggest problem here, is to have continued employment for people to keep your culture going.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think you've been doing with that so far? Well, obviously successful, but
working with people is always difficult, right? And so it's not an easy thing to do. People talk about that, but it is a constant working to keep your culture going and going in the direction that you want, and pick the right people that fits with your culture, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we're doing pretty well. So I'm happy with that.
And in terms of marketing, let's say now there was a point in your career where you were kind of getting started and stuff like that. Do you have any ideas or tips for people for marketing a smaller company and trying to get that to grow to be a big company?
I'm a firm believer of basics. You have to do the basic stuff correctly. And
when you talk about the basics, what would you identify as the basics there?
Well, business have different building blocks, and what I've noticed, what people do is they like to focus on one part of the business and think that that's the whole business. And unfortunately, that's not how business works. So people will say, well, you just need to market and you need to do Google AdWords. I mean, I've heard of some of the money that people spend on Google AdWords, and I can tell you I've rarely spent more than 2% of my revenue on Google AdWords. I just don't believe in that. Yeah. And even now I don't. I just don't. But people focus on one building block of a business, and there is many building blocks. So I would advise people to look at all the building blocks. And that's, again, back to my roadmap. I took the people on all the building blocks. So you need to work on all the building blocks at the same time. It's not just the one. So if you just focus on marketing, that's not going to let you grow because there's other things that's as important, maybe more important. I'm a civil engineer, like I said, and so I'm more a numbers guy. And when I look at the problem, I like to go back to the root of the problem. You know, when you solve difficult mathematics, we have basics that you start with, and you do the calculations and you solve this difficult problem at the end of the day. I can remember back in the day when I was in college, and then you write your exam, and then you get this difficult problem, and the way to solve it was to go to the basics, use that, and you iterate it to get to the solution. And that's what I believe in here, is that what you should do, and you can't just rely on one part of the equation. And so you need to focus on all of them, not just on the one.
Mm-hmm. And right now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on down at IAAPA, and people are just going crazy with spending money. With a new company like that, do you think, or I should say, do you have any thoughts about what a well-rounded inventory would look like for a smaller company? Because I see sometimes they just got like maybe one or two bouncers, and they forget how important the slides are. You know, what are your thoughts if you could advise somebody that's at that position in their company? What would a well-rounded inventory look like to be able to really get going?
Yeah. Well, at first, it depends on where you're at, in what part of the country. If you're in the north, your inventory is going to look different than the people in the south. People in the south will probably have majority water slides, and the people in the north will have more combos and things that you can use in the wintertime. So it really depends on which part of the country you're in. The mistake that I see a lot of people do is they buy too much inventory. They buy stuff that they can't. They think if I buy a unit, it equates to more revenue, and that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I see they buy all this Christmas stuff and Halloween combos and inflatables like that. I did not invest in those things till way after $1 million mm-hmm. Of revenue. And so to answer your question is, I will look at the area that I'm in, not just the specific city, and see what is the stuff that those people have, and focus on those type of inflatables, and not the peripheral stuff like Christmas inflatables and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would suggest.
And what would be your recommendation for the rule of thumb for investment in inventory, and in terms of how fast should somebody how fast should somebody think that they should be growing their company? Do you have any thoughts on those numbers? Let's say I'm doing $150,000 a year. I'm holding on to maybe 30% of it. At what rate should somebody be spending money on inventory?
Well, again, that depends on your goals, what your goals are. It should not say, I need to invest everything back in into the business. And many people will never get to $1 million. So for many different reasons, but so I personally don't believe that there is a rate that you should grow. You need to do what's right for you and what fits into your goals. That's why I always start with the goals, is what works for you. Growth is not always the right answer. It depends on person to person. Me, I decided way in the beginning that I want to grow the company. I want to do more than just have a lifestyle company. And I was looking for a challenge and things like that. So I had other things that I was going after other than just having a lifestyle business. To just give you an idea about us is we went from 37,000 the first year to 117 the second year, to about 350 something in the third year, 700, just over 700 the fourth year, and the fifth year we did $1 million. Mm-hmm. And we did that back in 2013. We were already at $1 million. But I would not say everybody needs to do that, right? I'm a firm believer you need to go, what's your goals? Don't look at Willem and what Willem did or what this guy did and that guy did. What makes me happy and what makes you happy is two different things. And it's not just a financial thing that makes us happy. It's not just where we at that makes us happy. There's a lot of factors that play in why we do what we do. And that needs to be your determining factor other than just grow, 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 grow. I don't think growth is for everybody.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I ask is because one of the things that I see a lot as I talk to customers and, help them with their businesses and whatnot. And I know you've been real involved in mentoring other businesses and trying to help teach people. Obviously, Event Professional Alliance is a great example of that. And your roadmap, deal that you had going for a while, is I see people spending money to get larger and larger inventory. And it's kind of, I guess that goes back to your building blocks, making sure you've got the basics covered, is they get all this inventory lined up and then they don't have the logistics to actually get it out every weekend. There's got to be a way to manage that.
Yeah, well, the thing, and I thought about it the other day, people like to say, I've got 100 inflatables. Mm-hmm. If you have 100 inflatables and you don't make $1 million with that 100 inflatables, yep, you do something hugely wrong. Mm-hmm. And from my experience of people that I've worked for, usually when they have 100 inflatables, they do around $500,000 worth of revenue, maybe even less. Mm-hmm. So if you're one of those people that do $400,000 to $600,000, you have 100 inflatables, you're doing something wrong, and you need to go figure out why you have 100 inflatables. And I've showed people that, first of all, very few of the people have correct financials. They think ERS and these other programs, that's financials. That's not financials. That is just maybe an idea of what it is. It's not financial. So you need to use a financial software to work out your profit and loss, and forget about your balance sheet. I haven't seen many balance sheets that's correct. So to get your balance sheet right is a lot of work, and people need to know who does it, what to do, or yourself. But usually your accountants should do that. But it's a lot of money that people can't afford in the beginning. So what I notice is these people buy all these inflatables and they overcapitalized, and they could have really took that money invested in almost in crypto and have a much bigger return. So I've advised people that overbought stuff to sell it off and go back to where they were and continue from there. And I showed them in their financials that I helped put together what they did 2 years ago and what they do now. They do a lot more revenue, but they make the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. So why did you invest $200,000 in equipment that you didn't need and you still make the same money?
Right. Have you have any more thoughts about, are you going to do roadmap again, or is that something that you did and you did it and it's done?
No, I still would like to do it. I obviously didn't do it last year. I'm still thinking if I want to do it this year. The problem with something like that is people don't really get what you give them, right? If you go and look at the stuff that I had there, it's very, very powerful. For somebody that doesn't understand it, it doesn't look powerful, but it is, because the stuff that I do there is what I use myself. So I know it works. I'm not getting it somewhere else and do what somebody else told me. It's stuff that I did myself. I built two businesses in the US past $1 million in 5 and less years. And back in South Africa, I've built a sizable business there too, just in a different money value. But so I teach these things, what I have tried and that I know that works. And but the problem is afterwards is how to continue those people that they do what they need to do, because you go to these things, you get all this information and you don't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. Then that doesn't help.
Right.
So if you really want to do this stuff, you need to do that and have a support network afterwards. And I'm still working on really if I still want to continue with that, or I'm really focusing, and that's kind of why I'm not at IAAPA, focusing on some other stuff that's much bigger and much more fun to do.
So tell me about, I know you're a big believer in mentorship, and I know you use it personally. If you wouldn't mind, how has mentorship helped you personally, and how do you apply that to the way that you're thinking about your future?
Yes. Well, in 2014, I started to go to Visser. It's Visser.com. Mm-hmm. It's a worldwide organization for CEOs. Now, you have to have certain revenue levels that you need to have. I think to just get in on the small business part, you need to do at least $1 million. Mm-hmm. And so I got involved with that, and then I moved up to the bigger group, the CEO group, back in 2018, I think. And the mentors that you have there is all people that's done it. Mm-hmm. And they are, most of them are retired, and they do this as a give back to the community. And how it works is you and anywhere from 12 to 16 other CEOs in your community get together once a month for a full day executive session. That's what we call it. So you sit in a room with 12 to 16 other CEOs having a full day meeting about business. We do all kinds of stuff, but the biggest one is that we come with issues that we have in our business. We call it issue processing, and we have a form how we do that. So I would come, I fill it out before the time, we email it to everybody, and then in the meeting, we have a time for the issue processing, and then we process these issues. That is extremely helpful because the issue about employees is the same across the board. Like this past last week in a meeting, just a rough explanation of what happened is the CEO employed operation manager to 3 months ago to run the whole operations for her, but he's not stacking up, and she wants to demote him again, and ask us how can she do it in the right way, or what is other options to do. And then we're 15 other people in the room that can give her advice of what we think she should do, right? And that's very valuable because you sit with 15 other people that give you their thoughts of what they would do to solve that problem. And this is just one example. And we meet once a month. And then once a month, we call it a one-to-one. I have a one-to-one with my Visser's chair for an hour and a half. And that's a powerful 1 hour and a half. And we focus on things that is pertaining to my business and where we're going and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's a broad range of stuff. And this guy advise you and help you, okay, but you need to do this and that. You need to look at that and help you to have more clarity in what you do. And so I've been in that system since 2014, and it was very valuable for me. I like that it's outside of the rental industry. My company is the smallest in the group that I'm at. The guy that's the biggest in my group, he's part of I mean, I can't go into it, but he's in, he oversees $600 million of revenue. Then there's guys in the high hundreds or close to 100,000, and the bulk of them is between 10 and $30 million. So those are the caliber of people that I hang around with, learning from them and obviously learning from me too. So I'm a firm believer of that.
So tell me, if you don't mind, okay? We're gonna peek under your skirt here for a second. What's the one thing that you think you got wrong that your mentor said, Willem, this is the way you got to do this? If you don't mind sharing an example like that with us, what do you think was one thing that you got wrong that you were able to correct by going outside of the norm?
There's not many things, and that's a lie. No, I think
you're so modest, Willem.
Yeah. No, I think I'm a technical thinker, so that's why I'm an engineer, right?
Right.
And so I tend to look at the operations. If you go look at my operations, it's extremely well run. All those, my financials, my accountant the other day said, of all her customers, the only person that she would allow to change something in the accounting system is me, because I correct them all the time because I understand financials really, really well. And it's the cornerstone of your business. What right. A lot of people don't understand, it's not just the stuff you see on ERS. Trust me. Sorry, Rob, but that's the truth. And that is just one part of the equation, a very small part of the equation, because the other stuff is way more important. And so I tend to focus on that part. And just the other day, he took me for task, and it was actually in October.
Yeah.
He said, man, I I love you, I care about you, but dude, you need to change this.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on that. And that's more about the marketing side of it, because I'm not a good marketer. And I'll admit it, and I'm fine with it. You can be good at everything that you do, but so yeah, that's the one thing that I've always known that I don't do really well. And so that's the answer to your question.
So I'm going to ask, we got a few people in here watching this with us now. If you guys can hear me, if you'd like to ask Willem a question, you can unmute and just jump in and ask a question. Or if you'd just like to put it in the chat here, I'll show you where you can come in here and ask a question. Questions here. Let's see if somebody pops up. So, seeing as how you were just talking about creative marketing, what kind of features are you looking to do for the new Amanzi? I mean, because okay, so let's talk. We're talking big event. Have you got any big ideas about how you're going to approach talking to event planners or corporate clients in terms of your presentation and for moving forward the brand of Amanzi in the event business?
Yes, I think the biggest thing that I'm going to change is we used to, if we do a big event, send people a quote through ERS. And I'm going to change that. We're going to do more marketing type of material that if you have an event that I'm going to give you a packet together outside of ERS. I think that is probably, if I can lift the cap a little bit, that is what I'm going to do different so that we're different than the other people. Mm-hmm. So I think that is probably the biggest thing that I'm going to change is doing it that way instead of just, I mean, we do 25, 30, 40,000, sometimes $50,000 events. Sending them a quote through ERS. And
well, I remember when you did that one event, I forget who it was. Wasn't it a beer company or something? And you had the bright idea to change your bull over to the company mascot. I remember that because that started a whole new thing with the mechanical bulls when you did that.
Yes. And so that's what I'm going to do is just a presentation. I'm going to change the presentation instead of just sending it through ERS.
Excellent. Well, Willem, thanks for joining us today. I got to get ready for our next one. We're about to, in fact, this might be funny for you. We're about to get a bunch of the California companies together to talk about politics in California and how it's affecting the event business. Should be fiery.
I'm glad.
Thanks a lot, man. And I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. I know everybody else will too. And we were going to process this video and we will repost it for everybody to check it out and get words of your wisdom at their leisure. But thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, we'll be talking to you soon.
I hope somebody learned something.
Yeah, they did. I see a well said in here from Jim right now in the comments already.
Well, I just don't know who Jim is. Which Jim is that?
I have no idea. I just see Jim, so I don't know.
All right, man.
Thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon.